China has set new general principles aimed at raising its status and influence on the world stage in the coming years, as part of President Xi Jinping's campaign to present his country as an alternative to leading a new world order instead of the US-led one, according to Bloomberg. The Chinese president, top leaders and about 200 others attended a Communist Party foreign policy conference this week at which they pledged to increase Beijing's international influence, according to a government statement issued late on Thursday evening. We must reject all acts of power politics and intimidation, and vigorously defend our national interests and dignity, the government said in the statement, in a veiled criticism of U.S. influence, and continued. We must take a clear and firm position, adhere to the high international moral responsibility, and unite and mobilize the overwhelming majority in our world. This is the fourth time the conference has been held, after the inaugural edition in 2006, and the subsequent ones in 2014 and 2018, and it is the foreign policy equivalent of China's October fiscal policy meeting, also attended by Xi, at which it was pledged to establish a long-term mechanism for resolving debt risks associated with local authorities. Since Xi began to abandon his strict approach to limiting the spread of the corona pandemic infection in late 2022, an approach that isolated his country from the rest of the world for about 3 years, he has made a lot of diplomatic efforts aimed at building China's global standing. The Chinese president seeks to portray his country as a giant of the emerging economies known as the Global South, by creating blocs in which Beijing has a major role. He had previously called on the BRICS group, in August, to accelerate the pace of its membership expansion plan, a step that will give his policies and ideas a larger audience, according to Bloomberg. In October, he also hosted the Belt and Road Forum in Beijing, an event related to his distinctive infrastructure initiative that has become a club for the countries of the Global South as Europe largely withdraws from this region. Xi is also working on building the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as an important regional security grouping, which helps his country establish closer relations with Russia and Iran, the main rivals of the United States, according to Bloomberg. The Chinese president is also seeking to deepen Beijing's influence in Central Asia, while Russia is focusing on its war in Ukraine. In May, Xi hosted a summit with the leaders of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan to discuss closer trade and security ties. Xi's vision of a more influential China also includes the South Pacific region, and in a sign of Beijing's great interest in this region, this year it appointed the first special envoy for the Pacific Islands. Meanwhile, there are indications that China is trying to renew international organizations such as the United Nations, to better match its vision of the world, and is also intensifying its efforts to have a greater voice in technical standard-setting bodies around the world, so as to move its industries to the top of the so-called global value chains, and grow its influence. China says the moves are necessary because they deserve a voice to match its economic clout, but its critics say they undermine bodies, for example by shifting the UN's focus away from human rights that protect individuals.